Welcome back. Throughout this Let's Play, we've been collecting the black records, and it's time to see what that leads to here on the rooftop of the new schoolhouse. Not the old schoolhouse, the new schoolhouse.
My! Who would have imagined even more marvelous mysteries still lurked within the old schoolhouse? What a delight! Why, I can hardly stop myself from heading in there to take a little peek.
That might not be the best idea right now. There's no telling what could happen in there.
Oh, come now, I was only kidding. I wouldn't dream of rushing in to steal the thrill of discovery for myself. But, all joking aside, I take it you finished reading those deciphered passages from the black records I gave you, Rean.
Huh?
Deciphered?
Well, sure, I looked through them, but why do you ask? And what's Rosine doing here anyway?
Well...
Questions, so many questions. Please, allow me to elucidate.
Indeed.
What's going on? This is just like when I called out to Valimar that first time.
To put it simply, I've created a partition of sorts. The three of us standing here within are the only ones who can even sense it. Meanwhile, those outside remain blissfully unaware of its existence. I'll admit, for a moment there, I was worried that Emma and Celine might have noticed something amiss, but it seems I've still got the touch.
Just who the hell are you? And you too, Rosine. Why are you wearing your habit all of a sudden?
Starting off with the basics, I see. Perfectly fine by me. Who the hell am I indeed? My formal ties are to the Septian Church, as a member of the Gralsritter. Second among the Dominion, in fact. I stand at the right hand of our leader, and am known by some as the Partitioner. But you already know my real name, of course. I've never hidden that from you. I am and shall always be Thomas Lysander.
I'm a squire, tasked with supporting him in the execution of his duties. You could say I'm an apprentice knight of the Gralsritter.
What? Hold on. What?
I can understand his confusion.
The Gralsritter? Do they have something to do with the Congregation for the Sacraments Scarlet was talking about?
Have you not played the previous games? It's all there.
That they do, Rean. We're a secret sect of the Congregation, an unseen face. Our organization's existence isn't known to the wider world, nor should it be.
Our primary purpose is to gather and seal away dangerous artifacts. But every once in a blue moon, it becomes necessary to undertake covert operations like this one.
Triple dot.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised. To be honest, I felt like there was something off about you for a while now. You were able to decipher the black records for one, and your knowledge and abilities go way beyond the average instructors. But even still, I never would have guessed you were connected to something this large scale. And with all that in mind, what do you want with me? Why tell me all of this now? Have you finally decided to step out from the shadows and interfere?
That's not quite it.
Perish the thought, Rean. What happens in the old schoolhouse is out of our jurisdiction. Always has been. The way things stand brings to mind a few parallels with Liberal's Phantasma trouble, but I doubt this is nearly as dangerous.
Yeah, I was thinking there's a similarity there.
After we're done here, I'll be glad to let you tackle that on your own. Me, I'm only here for a little talk with you. After all, you are an Awakener, possessor of a fragment of the Great Power. And that means we have matters to discuss. This should come as no surprise, but the trouble facing this land is far from over. Now, it may seem to have passed for now. But this peace is merely a simple respite, The most crucial moment stands silent in the wings, waiting to unfurl before us. The Chancellor never stops spinning his webs, and while he may have repelled Ouroboros for now, they will be back. Mark my words. And there's not a doubt in my mind that you'll have an important role to play in what's to come. That's why I thought it would be worthwhile to make a formal introduction and ask for your cooperation. So, what say you?
Sir, if I may, you might want to ease him into this a little more gently. It's quite a lot to take in at once. Rean, I want you to know we're not here to scare you or to make an enemy of you. We don't mean to pressure you into a response either. For now, our intent is just to remain here and keep an eye on things. So if there's ever anything you need our help with, we're here for you. Just ask and we'll do whatever we can.
Thanks, Rosine. You're right, too. This is a lot to take in at once. I'm not really sure how to respond. I guess at the very least, I can tell you're not my enemies. But by the same token, that doesn't necessarily make you my allies either. So, no promises.
I understand completely, Rean. And for the time being, that's perfectly fine. But to return to an earlier topic, those black records you found are actually of particular interest as historical artifacts. As far as I can tell, their purpose was to record the true history of the Divine Knights. Given that recovering artifacts like those is our job, well, if you happen to find any more, do pass them along to us, would you? I'll give you transcripts of everything I can decipher, of course. Given what you've read so far, I'm sure you must be curious.
I'll give it some thought.
Huh? Huh? Huh?
What?
Huh?
What?
Huh?
What in the...
Well, do take care, everyone. I'll be praying for you.
Of course you will.
Scholar of the Truth. My, who would have imagined that more wonderful mysteries still lurked within the old schoolhouse? I'd be more fascinated to see what else might be waiting inside. Please do take care. I'll be praying for your safety. Right, so, if we leave now, I think there's another scene, isn't there?
Are you really sure that was for the best? I'm afraid you might have made him even more wary of us.
Oh, that was exactly my intent. I need him to start acting with a little greater awareness of his place in a world that's more precarious than he takes it for. That is, if we intend to unravel the mysteries of the two septarians that once graced this hallowed land. And beyond that, the secrets of the system fashioned by the witches and gnomes. The 7 Divine Knights.
Is that the first mention of the two septarians? Like the fact there's two? Can't remember if it was mentioned before.
Osborne being dead set on locking down our activity certainly doesn't help matters either. The Roaring Lion should be able to take care of Western Erebonia on his own. But there's certainly no harm in working to strengthen our foothold on this side of the Empire as well. Our work will not be easy, Rosine. Be mindful of that.
Yes, sir. Well, if you'll excuse me, the children are waiting.
Which means she must have passed by me when I was standing there. And he's gone. Scarpered. Right, so, let's actually see about these black records. Where is the option? Where's the option?
Of course! Right! Onward!
Is there not like a... I'm looking for like detective notebook. Like the note. How do I get that to come up? Ah. It's the touchpad. Of course. So I'm just not used to having the touchpad as an option. You know, books of black records. Black record number 1. Gods of creation before Septine calendar. In the beginning, there were 2 great gods. One boasted unrivaled courage, the other unparalleled fortitude, they descended from the heavens with their kin, and it was upon the dark land below that they first met. Like calamity. And their opposing natures incompatible, the two were drawn irresistibly into battle, and thus began a struggle that shook heaven and earth. The goddess and the spirit's laments were for naught. As the land quaked, the skies were torn asunder, and the god's kin could only tremble in fear. After what seemed like an eternity, their clash came to an end. But it was an end of mutual defeat. Their power spent, the empty shells of the two celestial titans were flung into the furthest reaches of the dark land. All that remained in their wake were terrible scars in land, their kin, and the great power. The Dark Dragon, year 371 Septine calendar. 200 years after Heimdall was first founded, Rean rose on monstrous wings from the depths of the earth. Oh my. Its name was Zoro-Agruga, the Dark Dragon. A malevolent creature of terrible power, it spread a miasma throughout the capital that turned Heimdall into a city of the dead. But the horrors did not end there. The evil dragon desecrated the corpses of the fallen, taking control of their bodies and using them to attack those who remained alive, further increasing the legions of the dead. And the emperor at the time, Astorius II, was forced to flee the city with what remained of his household and citizens. Together they retreated south and established a new capital in the land of St. Arc. Through 100 years and 6 more emperors, the bane of Heimdall went unchallenged. It was the 7th, Hector I, who resolved the recapture of the city. Time had proved an ally to the beast, however, and the dragon's influence had spread over the surrounding area like a plague. Undaunted, Hector I led an army of brave knights into the necropolis in an attempt to free it, but though their hearts were steadfast, their arrival was met by legions of powerful fiends, and their efforts seemed doomed to end in failure. It was then that Hector the First had a fateful encounter with none other than the great Vermilion Knight, Testarossa. The knight recognized Hector I as its master, and bolstered by its immense power and countless weapons, the Emperor moved once again on the city and to the decisive encounter with the Dark Dragon. The battle shook the city to its core, and at the end the Vermilion Knight was victorious. The scourge of Heimdall, the Dark Dragon, was defeated. However, the price of victory was steep. The corrupted blood that flowed from the dragon claimed Hector's life and defiled even the knight itself, placing a curse upon it. The noble Testarossa became the Crimson Calamity, a demon with 1,000 weapons that only reacts to the blood of the Arnold family. A destructive force on par with the Dark Dragon that, should control of it ever be lost, would threaten the world and all who live in it. It was sealed deep underground, never intended to again see the light of day. Meanwhile, a new city rose from the ashes of the old, and people once again began to gather in Heimdall. And that was when the Vermilion capital, that endures to this day, was first built. The Royal Alliance begins year 947. In the year 947, Emperor Valius V passed away. His death heralded the beginning of the largest-scale civil war in Erebonian history. Valius V was a ruler with a somewhat debaucherous reputation, and is said to have countless wives and concubines. To further complicate the matter of succession, many of those wives came from prestigious noble families, all of whom began competing for power and wanted their offspring to take the throne. In days of Valius V's death, Crown Prince Manfred, the son of his first wife, was assassinated by an unknown party. Following the death of the Crown Prince, the fourth prince and son of the first Emperor Valus' secondary wives, Prince Ulthros, seized the capital by force. Once in control, he declared himself the new emperor and began purging all those who dared to oppose him. The coup set off a succession of counterclaims, and 3 other princes also named themselves to be the new emperor. Backed by the powerful noble families of their mothers, the competing princes ignited a bloody 5-year-long civil war, and thus the War of the Lions began. At first, the princes' armies were largely equal in terms of strength. It wasn't until Orthos, who would later become known as the False Emperor, revived the being that had long been sealed under the city, that the balance of power shifted. The Testarossa, the legendary Vermilion Knight, now tainted by the blood of Zoro-Agruga, saw the light of day once more. With its unmatched strength under its control, Orthros decimated his greatest competition in one fell swoop, and the 5th prince, Gunnar, was defeated. It seemed inevitable that the armies of the other princes would share the same fate, but it was at this pivotal point that the war took yet another surprising sudden turn. This unexpected development came in the form of another great knight, the Palatinate Knight. The famed champion was acquired by Prince Lucius, the sixth and youngest of the feuding brothers. With its power, he was able to defeat the army of the brilliant strategist and second Prince Albert. Victorious and backed by the knight's power, Prince Lucius was poised to challenge Orthros. Prince Gunnar and Albert's armies, however, were not completely wiped out, but decided to join forces with one another in order to oppose the other princes. It is thus that the war became one fought by three separate groups: Prince Orthros with the Vermilion Knight, Prince Lucius with the Palatinate Knight, and Princes Gunnar and Albert, who had no knight but compensated with their sheer numbers. The War of Alliance had been raging for 2 years, and the chaos only worsened by the day. Erebonia seemed fated to fall into ruin and darkness, fitting perhaps for a nation that takes its name from Erebos. Drykos takes up arms, year 949. A young man lays on a grassy plain, enjoying a nap in the peaceful setting. Before long, however, his rest was interrupted by the arrival of a second young man on horseback. The youth wore the trappings of a knight, and his expression was deathly serious. His armor bore many rents and scratches, and his left arm was bound in a bloody bandage. The first young man had not seen him in several years, but a cheerful reunion did not seem to be his purpose. "You were right after all," the second man said gravely. "At this rate, the Empire's days are numbered." At this, the first young man rose from the grass. He was none other than the third prince of the Erebonian Empire, Prince Drykos. As a man with no claim to the throne due to his commoner mother and shunned by the other high-born princes, Drykos had long since left Erebonia behind, wandering from place to place and whiling his days away. 3 years prior, he had reached the land of Nord, where he had remained ever since. Though left to his own devices since childhood, his nature was noble and he was quickly accepted by the people of Nord and lived peacefully among them. But while he had left his homeland, he had not truly abandoned it in his heart. During his wanderings, his mother had passed away, but while she lived, she had told him something that would remain with him for the rest of his days. The blood flowing through you will not allow you to turn your back on the Empire's suffering. Prince Drykos had turned those words over in his head again and again. What could a powerless vagrant like himself truly hope to do? The knight's arrival, however, signified two things: that the war continued to worsen and that Erebonia was on a certain path to ruination. His mother was probably correct. Hearing the knight's words, he decided that enough was enough. He could ignore the pain of his countrymen no longer. The knight, incidentally, was called Roland. He was a childhood friend of Drykos and his confidant. He was also the man who Drykos had left in charge of things in his place before leaving the country. Prince Drykos set about preparing to depart, but before he could finish, he was met by several of the tall knights of Nord. Their cross-shaped spears in hand, they too were close friends of Drykos, and they volunteered to accompany him and Roland, fearing that the two men alone would not stand a chance. Next morning, the prince departed the village, and there's 17 men under his command. They bade farewell to the people of the settlement. His elder wished them well. "May the winds and the goddess be with you," he blessed them. "Fortune favor you all." The war comes to an end 952. Prince Drykos' opponents were the armies of 4th Prince Orthros and his Vermilion Knight, 6th Prince Lucius with the Palatine Knight, and the combined forces of the remaining princes, Gunnar and Albert, who had a legion of magical golems under their control. It was he, the illegitimate son of a commoner and late comer to the war, who emerged triumphant. His victory did not come without losses, however. During his return to Erebonia, Roland fell in battle. Not long after that, however, he met a woman who would change his destiny forever. That woman was none other than the daughter of Count Sandlot, who hailed from the lakeside town of Legram. Her charismatic personality and peerless skills with the lance earned her the leadership of a band of knights known as the Eisenritter and the moniker Lance Maiden. Her name was Leanne Sandlot. Prince Drykos and Leanne Sandlot may have come from widely different backgrounds, but their concern for the innocent victims of the war united them in purpose to bring an end to the bloodshed, and it was those shared feelings that made them join forces. The two of them, along with the warriors of Nord, the Eisenritter, and all of the peoples of the nation whose hearts they moved, liberated one town after another, and were eventually successful in persuading even Prince Lucius, owner of the Palatine Knight, to fight for their cause. At the same time, however, the false emperor schemed to elevate the cursed Vermilion Knight to even greater power, to godhood, and thus the Vermilion Apocalypse was created. The demonic god emerged in Heimdall alongside a monstrous castle and vanquished the approaching armies of Albert and Gunnar in a single battle. Their end was anything but conventional, however. They were simply erased from existence. Even the Palatine Knight could not contend with such a foe and was felled. And as it was decimated all who challenged the false emperor, countless crimson spirit veins spread out from the castle, stealing the very life from the capital's citizens. as well as those in the surrounding area. Defeat seemed all but inevitable for Prince Dracos, the Lance Maiden, and their followers, but they refused to give up. Following the guidance of a kindly witch, they were led to a new great knight which slumbered on the outskirts of Heimdall. After overcoming a trial, they were able to claim the Ashen Knight and its power. With it in hand, along with their many supporters in the army of Prince Lucius, they marched on the capital for the final time, eventually making their way to the castle at its center. 3 days later, on the 4th of July, year 952, the castle vanished from existence, and the city was liberated. Well, there we go. That was the Black Records, and I think that would be a lovely place to actually end this part. And in the next part, we'll head back to the Reverie Corridor. So we'll see you then. Ta-ra for now.